What up, what up? This is Adam Johnson with Basketball Pantheon from basketballpantheon.com and the Basketball Pantheon YouTube channel. I want to get back at it with some videos. This is kind of a special project we've been working on, and we are, getting close to finishing it, so we want to kind of get some videos out and kind of show the progress of what we've done so far. What we decided to do was do all-time rosters, every franchise all-time roster, but with no duplicate players. I know a bunch of people do this. There's a guy that has for Xbox One as one of the the top. I think it's the top downloaded roster that you can edit. And it's an awesome. He did an awesome job. He created a bunch of players. He's got guys on the right teams, but there are duplicates, and I didn't really like that. And this is something. There's eventually a tournament that I want to do with these teams. And I didn't quite think having the duplicates made a lot of sense. I didn't really want to have a situation where Kareem is guarding Kareem. So I decided to just have one player of each version, and I really wanted to go in depth and create every team's best possible team. And some of it is evened out. Like, I put Shaq on the Lakers. Kareem is on the Bucks. Even though Kareem played the majority of his career at the Lakers, he did, win a title with the Bucks, and obviously is, probably their best player in franchise history. Even though he only played, his first few years there. I kind of wanted to even it out. It seemed dumb to have both Kareem and Shaq on the Lakers. So what we did is we have, Kareem Bucks, Shaq Lakers. Dwight Howard's on the Magic, not that he would have been on the Lakers, but instead of having Shaq and Dwight Howard on the Magic, now it's just Dwight Howard, so, it kind of makes sense. So there's a little bit evening out, and there's some teams where it's like, okay, they're so loaded, I'd rather put, a guy's different season, like Anthony Mason. I could have put him on the Knicks, but the Knicks didn't really need another 3 or 4, so I went ahead and put Anthony Mason on the Hornets. Just little things like that, just to make it to where the rosters weren't, like, totally ridiculous. So it's not perfect, and it never will be. And the creative players aren't perfect. Some guys I actually took, I edited players who actually looked like kind of those counterparts. Like, where's one here? Oh, right here. Michael Redd. That's actually Tony Douglas's player model. I just completely changed all of his stats and his height, weight, where he went to school, number, obviously, name, to make him Michael Redd now. And maybe it made him left-handed, obviously. So we did little things like that, too, to kind of even it out. But what we wanted to do today was go over the first division. We're going to put 6 different videos out, kind of going over the divisions. The Central Division is completely done. We've finished creating those rosters, so we wanted to kind of go through those really quickly, just so you guys can see it before we actually get to playing games and give you guys the idea of the tournament that we're going to do. So we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, obviously. This is this 1971 version. Oh, that's another thing, too. We decided to just choose each player's best year with that team. So this was a little tricky. Like when it came to LeBron, I think LeBron's best overall season was 2013 with the Heat. But LeBron is on the Cavs, so we had to choose LeBron's best season with the Cavs, if that makes sense. So it was more like that rather than just thinking just the guy's straight best season. It's best season with that team. So this is the 1971 version of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. No editing required. The 71 Bucks are on the team. Just simply traded him, and that was easy. Sidney Moncrief. This is the 1985 version of Sidney Moncrief. Same thing. Didn't need to move him over. Marcus Johnson. This is 1979 version. We did have to do some kind of editing of him, obviously. Michael Redd. This is the 2006 version of Michael Redd. We decided to make him 86 overall. This is the current version of Giannis Antetokounmpo. When we created this roster, he was 86. I think he's gone up even since then. So before we start the tournament, if the real version of Giannis goes up, we will edit the ratings to reflect that. So it's the most up to date as possible. Glenn Robinson. This is our first just fully created player that we did. I actually think it looks pretty good. There's a little big dog there. And this is the 2001 version of Glenn Robinson. Paul Pressey, grabbed him off of the classic Bucks team, went ahead and put him on the game, and this is the 1985 version. Sam Cassell, a number of franchises he could have chose to put him on, decided to go with the Bucks. They were kind of the most in need of a point guard, and he did have some great seasons there. So this is the 2001 version of Sam Cassell, the year the Bucks probably should have gone to the finals, but lost to the Sixers in 7 controversial games. Bob Dandridge. On the 1971 title-winning team, had to be on this team. Could have been on the Wizards as well, but decided to put him on the Bucks. The Wizards were kind of full at his position, so this is the 1971 version of Bob Dandridge. Again, very easy, just traded him over. Brian Winters, another created player. I think we did a decent job here creating Brian Winters. Really good players in the 70s and 80s for the Bucks, and thought he deserved to be on this team. This is the 1978 version of Brian Winters. Ricky Pierce. This is the 1987 version of Ricky Pierce. Andrew Bogut, obviously on the game. Just had to trade him over from the Mavericks and put him on the Bucks. This is the team that drafted him, number 1 pick. So this is the 2010 version of Andrew Bogut when the Bucks made the playoffs that year. Terry Cummings. Notice his number is a little off. That's because of Giannis. Terry Cummings is on the game. 1985 version of Terry Cummings. Again, just traded him from the 85 team. And then the last spot went to Mike Dunleavy. He was kind of a leftover. I just thought, what the heck, might as well throw him on there. So he's the 14th player. So here, look kind of quick what the rotation looks like. Obviously, Giannis could step in for a number of these guys here, but as of now, it's Sam Cassell, Sidney Moncrief, Marcus Johnson, Terry Cummings, and Kareem as the starters, with Bob Andrews, Michael Redd, Giannis, Paul Pressey, Glenn Robinson, Andrew Bogut, Ricky Pierce, Brian Winters, and Mike Dunleavy rounding out the roster. So let's go ahead and get to the next team, which coincidentally is just the next in the alphabetical order here. The Chicago Bulls, the Central Division. Obviously, Michael Jordan, no-brainer. Going to have him on the team, no doubt. We went with the 96 version of Jordan. Again, no editing required. Scottie Pippen. Went ahead with the 97 version of Scottie Pippen, so we just made him a little bit better than the 96 version. Thought that was Pippen's kind of overall best year, so there's Scottie. Derrick Rose, 2011, obviously his MVP season, so just moved Derrick Rose over from the Knicks, changed his number, edited the ratings. Oh, another thing we kind of wanted to make sure we kind of stuck to detail with. Let's go ahead and jump in here and see. We wanted to make, for these current players that we are obviously on the game, we wanted to go back and make it the years pro that he was at that time. So we spared kind of no details here when grading these players. So obviously this was Derrick Rose's third year when he won the MVP, so we made it years pro 3. So little things like that I think kind of added some life to this project. But Artis Gilmore, creative player, obviously. Looks kind of ridiculous because the Fro options are pretty weak on the creative player, but Artis Gilmore for sure belonged to this game. Massive player in the ABA. That was his best years with the Kentucky Colonels, the ABA. But Chicago Bulls is where he played most of his time in the NBA, along with the San Antonio Spurs. And we chose the 1979 version of Artis Gilmore. Joakim Noah. Obviously, he had an awesome season in 2014. That's the version we chose. So yeah, he's look at this. This is, 5th best player on the Bulls, all time based on peak seasons. Jimmy Butler. This is a rating that will go up too, just like Giannis. It's better. This is the current version of Jimmy Butler. That's his best version. Jerry Sloan, creative player here. We gave Jerry Sloan the 1969 season. Bob Love. This is probably going to end up being the starting power forward for this team unless they decide to go small, which I don't think they'll probably do. But Bob Love. This is a creative player, and this is the 1971 version of Bob Love. Luol Deng, moved him back over from the Lakers, the 07 version of Luol Deng. We made him an 83 overall. Reggie Theus, another creative player. He's kind of a hard player to create with the Jerry curl and the mustache. Very 80s looking player. Could have been on the Kings, but we decided to put him on the Bulls. Kings are loaded, as you'll see when we get to the Pacific Division. But we decided to put him on the Bulls. He had some really good seasons with the Bulls, including the 1981 season, which is the season we chose for him. Norm Van Leer, next up. I thought we did a pretty good job with this one. It looks pretty good. If you guys pull up a picture of Norm Van Leer, you can see we nailed this one. This is a 1973 version of Norm Van Leer. Tony Kukoc, moved him over from the 96 Bulls, and this is the 96 season. Tony Kukoc, 80 overall. B.J. Armstrong had to make his number 0 because of Bob Love. So this is B.J. Armstrong's random All-Star season in 1994. So that's the one we gave it to him. Still probably should have been an All-Star that year, which is why he's still at 78 overall. And then rounding out the roster is Steve Kerr. Obviously not a grade of the game, but he's on the game already. They could use a 14th roster spot, so he's going to be reserved. Might as well throw him on there. So that's what we did. Here's the starting lineup: Derrick Rose, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Bob Love, and Artis Gilmore, with Joakim Noah, Jimmy Butler, and Jerry Sloan kind of making up the rest of the rotation. B.J. Armstrong, Reggie Theus, Norm Van Leer, Tony Kukoc. Probably not going to see a lot of minutes. This is probably going to be a 9-man rotation, I would guess. With Jimmy Butler, obviously his rating will probably go up before we start this tournament. I'll see what it's at then, just like Giannis. All right, next up, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Again, coincidentally, the next team in the alphabetical order. Here we go. LeBron James, obviously going to be on the game. And this was a little bit of a contention between, kind of us guys over here at the Basketball Pantheon. Do we do the current version of LeBron James? We ended up going with the 09 version. I think he was a better overall player, better athlete, probably better defensively. And so that's one we went with, and we gave him a 97 overall. So what we did was we took the 07 version off the 07 Cavs that are classic team on the game and just edited the ratings a little bit, made him 2 years older. Made him 97 overall. Kyrie Irving. This is obviously the current version of Kyrie Irving. Mark Price, took him from one of the old school teams. Didn't have to create him, which was awesome. This is the 89 version of Mark Price. Larry Nance, same thing. Already on the game. Perfect. 87 overall, and it is the 89 version of Larry Nance. World B. Free. He was on the 77 Sixers, but played some of his best seasons with the Cavs. This is the 86 version of World B. Free. Had a great season that year. Austin Carr, probably going to end up being the starting shooting guard on this team. This is the 74 version of Austin Carr, and he's 85 overall. Zydrunas Ilgauskas. This is the '05 version of Zydrunas Ilgauskas. So what we did was take the '07 version and just make him a little bit better. So pretty simple there. Brad Daugherty, also in the game. Cavs are a pretty easy team to do. This is the '93 version of Brad Daugherty. Oh, by the way, Austin Carr was a creative player, but I thought we did a pretty good job with that one. It looks pretty good. So Campy Russell, another creative player. He's one of those ones that just kind of like cycled through the different face presets before I found one that looked, quite a bit like him. That's kind of a process we ended up doing with a lot of these guys, but I thought, decent job here. But yeah, this is Campy Russell, and this is the '79 version of Campy Russell. Mo Williams, the 2009 version of Mo Williams, given 82 overall, randomly made the All-Star team that year. Hot Rod Williams. This is the 1990 version of Hot Rod Williams. Tristan Thompson, this is current. Craig Elo was on the old school team as well. Very easy to edit. This is the 1990 version of Craig Elo. And Anderson Varejao actually had a couple really, solid seasons there in the late 2000s. So we went with the 2010 version of Anderson Varejao, gave him a 77 overall. So let's look at the rotation real quick of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Kyrie Irving, Austin Carr, LeBron James, Larry Nance, Zydrunas Ilgauskas. You really couldn't go wrong with either Big Z or Brad Daugherty as the starter here. Nance will probably play some 3 and 4. LeBron can play some 4. Mark Price will probably jump in there. You theoretically could just go Mark Price as the shooting guard, which is probably what most people do if they end up playing with this team. They'll go Kyrie Irving, Mark Price, LeBron, Nance, and either Daugherty or Big Z. And then rounding out the roster would be Howard Williams, Brad Daugherty, Campy Russell, Mo Williams, Tristan Thompson, Craig Elo, and Anderson Varejao in reserves. All right, let's get to the next team. We got a couple more here. Thanks for bearing with us so far. Central Division, the only reason we're doing this one first is because we just happen to finish these 5 teams first. That's kind of why we decided to do the Central Division as the first video. So the next team up will be the Indiana Pacers. Let's go ahead and slide over there. This is a fun one. A lot of guys we had to create, though. People are going to disagree with this, but I think Reggie Miller is slightly overrated historically, and I think Paul George is probably a better overall player. There's people who are going to be like, oh, how do you don't know the history of the game? Well, we have a website, podcast, YouTube channel, all dedicated to the history of the game. We do quite a bit of studying, and just think Reggie Miller, obviously the clutch factor and the fact that he hit some huge shots against the Knicks helps his case. But overall, when you really delve into his numbers, they're really not as strong as some of Paul George's seasons. So most people will be like, oh, why isn't Reggie Miller the best player on the team? I just think Paul George has been just a slightly better player over these last couple years. So that being said, Paul George, we chose the current version of Paul George. George McGinnis, monster during his time at the Pacers, and this is the 1975 version of George McGinnis. Reggie Miller had a few years to choose from. We actually chose one from a little bit earlier in his career. He's a little bit better athlete, and this is the 1991 version of Reggie Miller. Thought we did a pretty good job with that one. Mel Daniels, this is a creative player as well. Played a huge role in their 3 ABA title teams, and is probably going to be the starting center for this team. And this is let's see if I can find the year here, 1971 version of Mel Daniels. Danny Granger, another really solid player. Different points of his Pacers career, and then injuries just totally derailed kind of the momentum that he had going. But yeah, decent job. Looks pretty good. And this is the 09 version of Danny Granger. Jermaine O'Neal, another creative player. Looks pretty good. Jermaine O'Neal, if we had done this last year, was actually on the game as a free agent. It would have been much easier to just edit him and change the years and some of his ratings, but went ahead and had to create him, and this is the 03 version of Jermaine O'Neal. Ron Artest, Meta World Peace, changed his name. So glad 2K is as customizable as it is, because that would have been a nightmare if it would have just said Meta World Peace. Wanted to be authentic, and it says Ron Artest, so really happy about that. This is the 04 version of Ron Artest. Roger Brown, another creative player, back from their time in the ABA. Really big player for them. This is the 1970 version of Roger Brown. Rick Smits, the dunking Dutchman. We actually took a player who was playing for a European team. I actually don't remember what his name was. It wasn't a big-name guy. It wasn't like a prospect or anything. No one I had heard of before. But I thought it actually looked like Rick Smits. As good as you could. Creating him would have been very difficult because he has a very kind of unique look to him, so we ended up not creating. We tried to edit another European player that looked somewhat like him, changed his nationality, changed the age and all that stuff, just like we did with the other ones, and the height. Obviously, he was a huge guy, 7'4". So this is the 1994 version of Rick Smits. Chuck Person, the rifleman, really, really good seasons for the Pacers in the early 90s. This is the 1990 version of Chuck Person. He was on the game, just had to move him. Jalen Rose, a creative player. More of a fan favorite. I mean, he had some good years. This is the 01 version of Jalen Rose. Maybe we might have overrated him just a tad at 83. Might need to adjust that at some point. Roy Hibbert, all-star Roy Hibbert. People forget because now he's obviously not any good anymore. But this is the 2012 version of Roy Hibbert. Freddie Lewis, again, back from the ABA days with Roger Brown and Mel Daniels. This is the 1968 version of Freddie Lewis. Go look up a picture of Freddie Lewis. I think we did a pretty good job creating him. And then Mark Jackson. This is one of the most fun ones to create, I thought, because he'll actually play quite a bit of time. It'll either be Freddie Lewis or Mark Jackson as the starting point guard. And probably wasn't at the peak of his powers during his Pacers days, but he did help lead them to the finals. He was on that Reggie Miller team in 2000 that led them to the finals. So thought it was worth having him on there. Plus, people know who he is now because of the broadcasting and the coaching and all that stuff. So definitely worthy to be on the team, I thought. But this is the 1998 version of Mark Jackson. And then George Hill we just threw on. They had one extra roster spot. George Hill has had underrated years with the Pacers, and I just thought, might as well use that last roster spot. So that's why he made the team. But yeah, here's what the starters kind of project as right now. This obviously could change a little bit if we really wanted to, but I think this is what it'll end up being. Freddie Lewis at the point guard, Reggie Miller at the 2, Paul George, George McGinnis, and Mel Daniels round out the starting 5. Danny Granger off the bench, Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest, Jalen Rose, Mark Jackson, Chuck Person, Roger Brown, Rick Smith, and Roy Hibbert, and George Hill in reserve. So Hibbert and Hill in reserves, more two of their modern players. But the kind of weirdest thing with this team is the amount of small forwards. We have Roger Brown, Chuck Person, Jalen Rose, who can play really any of the three, either point guard, shooting guard, or small forward. Ron Artest, Danny Granger, and then Paul George and Reggie Miller can both play small forward. So really kind of a loaded position for this team. But again, very good team. One that's going to be fun with. But the team I think is probably the best overall from the Central Division is the Detroit Pistons, who are just a couple over here. This team is loaded. So let's go ahead and go through this team. This is one of the first ones we finished, actually. A lot of the guys were on the game already because of having the 89 and 04 Pistons. Those are really the two best eras of the team, so we got a lot of players from them. So Isaiah Thomas is up first. We chose the 1985 version of Isaiah Thomas. Not one of the championship years, but we went back a little bit to he's a little more athletic, a little better defensively during those times, so went with Isaiah Thomas, 1985. Grant Hill, creative player. Unfortunately, Grant Hill is not in the game anymore, so yeah, went ahead, had to create him, and he is the 1997 version of Grant Hill. Bob Lanier. This is another creative player. Bob Lanier, the 1974 version of Bob Lanier. And there's going to be quite a battle for the starting center spot between Ben Wallace, Andre Drummond, and Bob Lanier. Chauncey Billups, 04, the year he won the... Actually, I think we changed it to 06. We did. I see it on my little doc here. We changed his year to 06, one of his all-star seasons. A little bit better year than 04, even though he was the finals MVP in 2004. Joe Dumars, probably going to be the starting shooting guard on this team. This is the 1991 version of Joe Dumars. Andre Drummond, this is the current version. Richard Hamilton, 2004, championship-winning team. Awesome that he's on the game so we can give him the mask, and it really looks like him. It's going to be cool. Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace, 03 version. This is the year before they won the title. Rasheed Wallace, creative player. I thought it looked decent. So frustrating that Rasheed Wallace is not in this game because there's two classic teams that should have Rasheed Wallace at the center of them, the 04 Pistons and the 2000 Blazers, and they would be so much more fun to play with if Rasheed Wallace was on the game. I assume something happened with 2K where he did not give them the rights. Sheed also could have been on the Blazers, but they had a couple really good power forwards, so I went ahead and threw him on the Pistons. Dave Bing. Thought we did a decent job at this one. I think it looks a decent amount like him. Dave Bing is a 1971 version. George Yardley, old school player. Go look him up, guys. One of the original kind of greats of the game, and this is probably the oldest version of a player that we have so far of the teams that I've finished, at least. But yeah, George Yardley, this is the 1958 version of George Yardley, so pretty cool. Dennis Rodman, just a terror during his time with the Pistons, Defensive Player of the Year, just multiple first-team All-Defenses. This is the 1992 version of Dennis Rodman. Obviously, later played with the Spurs and Bulls and Lakers and Mavs in lesser stints. But this is probably the best version of him, and they could have used another player, so why not? Bill Laimbeer, everyone's least favorite basketball player, but he did deserve to make the roster on two championship teams. This is the 1984 version of Bill Laimbeer. And then Tayshaun Prince and Vinnie Johnson round out the roster. Obviously, they were on a game, just had to move them over. Tayshaun Prince, starting small forward on the championship team. Vinny Johnson, the microwave, great scorer off the bench during the late 80s Pistons dynasty. So let's look at their rotation real quick, and then we'll get you out of here. Thanks for bearing with us in this video. We want to get through all 5 of these teams. Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Grant Hill, Rasheed Wallace, and Bob Lanier is your starting lineup. That is an awesome starting lineup. There's balance, there's scoring, there's defense, there's size, there's rebounding. That's going to be a very fun team to play with. I think they can make a real run in this tournament. Chauncey Billups off the bench. not to mention the bench. Chauncey Billups off the bench. Dennis Rodman, Ben Wallace, Richard Hamilton, Andre Drummond, Dave Bing, George Yardley, Bill Laimbeer, and in reserve is Tayshaun Prince and Vinny Johnson. And having Tayshaun Prince and Vinny Johnson in reserve, that's pretty valuable. So pretty cool teams. I hope you guys like this project. The next division that we're going to do is the one that we're almost done with, is the Pacific Division. So be looking out for that. And then eventually at the end of this, once we get all the divisions up, we'll explain kind of what we're going to do with this. But it's been a very fun project so far. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. And come back for more. Thanks, guys.